Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Giri Varadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Giri Varadari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pararajikacharya Shutrashat Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya I guess we'll go through the whole Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nastaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Before reciting Śrimad Bhāgavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, Bhaktir Bhavati, is established as an irrevocable fact, Naishtaki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripasinu Bheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Hungum Gayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Perivanandamam Shri Chaitanya Ishram Hari Om Tat Sat. So today we're going to pack some cookies. Maybe we're going to pack some bookies. And we're going to study about bhakti. We're in chapter 21, canto 3, the status quo. Chapter 21, conversations between Manu and Kardama. And we're going through a few verses from 48 to 50. So I'll just read through 48 and 49, and then we can do 50 in the normal, usual style. Verse 48. Athotajam upayantam nridevam parnatam pura saparyaya paryagrinat pratinandyanurupaya. Seeing that monarch had come to his hermitage and was bowing before him, the sage greeted him with benediction and received him with due honor. Purport. Emperor Swayambhuva Manu not only approached the cottage of dried leaves possessed by the hermit Kardama, but also offered respectful obeisances to him. Similarly, it was the duty of the hermit to offer blessings to the king, who used to approach his hermitage in the jungle. Nice interaction. Verse 49. Grihitarhanam asinam samyatam prinayan muni smaran bhagavada desham ityaha shlakshanaya gira. Slakshnaya gira. After receiving the sage's attention, the king sat down and was silent. Recalling the instructions of the Lord, Kardama then spoke to the king as follows, delighting him with his sweet accents. Okay, now we can go through this with everybody. Nunam chankramanam deva. Nunam chankramanam deva. Nunam chankramanam deva. Satam samrakshanayate. Satam samrakshanayate. Satam sarakshanayate. Vadaya chat satam yastvam. Vadaya cha satam yastvam. Vadaya cha satam yastvam. Hari Shaktir hi palini. Hare Shaktir hi palini. Hare Shaktir hi palini. Devotees. Yes? Mataji's. Nunam chakramanam deva satam samkarshanayate vidhaya chat satam yastvam hare shaktir hi palini. The tour you have undertaken, O Lord, is surely intended to protect the virtuous and kill the demons, since you embody the protecting energy of Sri Hari. Please repeat. The tour you have undertaken, O Lord, is surely intended to protect the virtuous and kill the demons, since you embody the protecting energy of Sri Hari. 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 Purport. It appears from many Vedic literatures, especially histories like Śrimad Bhāgavatam and other Puranas, that the pious kings of old used to tour their kingdoms in order to give protection to the pious citizens and to chastise or kill the impious. Sometimes they used to kill animals in the forest to practice the killing art, because without such practice they would not be able to kill the undesirable elements. Kshatriyas are allowed to commit violence in that way because violence for a good purpose is a part of their duty. Here, two terms are clearly mentioned. Vadhaya, for the purpose of killing, and asatam, those who are undesirable. The protecting energy of the king is supposed to be the energy of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Paritranaya sadunam Vinashaya Tradushkratam Dharma Sanstapanartaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. The Lord descends to give protection to the pious and to kill the demons. Therefore, the potency to give protection to the pious and kill the demons or undesirables is directly an energy from the Supreme Lord. And the king or chief executive of the state is supposed to possess such energy. In this age, it is very difficult to find such a head of state who is expert in killing the undesirables. Modern heads of state sit very nicely in their palaces and try without reason to kill innocent persons. So, Mukam karoti vachalam pangum gaite girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Shri Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishram Hari Om Tat Sat. So in our first verse, in 48, in the purport, we hear about duty, and today I want to talk about king's duties and dharma and government. And some of these things Prabhupada's talking about in the purport. So, the word dharma comes from the root drit, or drit, to maintain. And so, dharma is that which, if you're living in it, then naturally you'll be maintained. It says, like, dharma upholds one who upholds dharma. And it's not just like some random laws in a book, or rather what the book is revealing is those natural laws which, if followed, produce that result by which everything can be maintained. Like the Upanishad mentions, if you know the proper way to relate with nature, then you can go on living continuously for hundreds of years. Similarly, if we follow the proper dharma in our own lives, it can help maintain all our different relationships. The son properly performing his dharma, studying, helping the parents with work, can create a very nice relationship with the parents. And in turn, the parents following their dharma will help protect the child, make sure he has the resources necessary. If the husband is following his proper duty, then he can get necessary respect and love and care from the wife. And if she's following his duty, then similarly the relationship can be harmonious. And what I wanted to talk about today was specifically dharma for as large. If like everyone's following their ordained duties, as per Vedic dharma, or the revealed truth of what exactly is like your society's dharma that's coming from sages who are in touch with the absolute truth, then the government is very wonderful. And we'll hear about different examples, especially from the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. There's a really wonderful example of proper governance. And even though this is the material world, and they say there's no such thing as perfect management, there's been examples in the past, and like we may not have a perfect way to get there today, but at least we can use these principles and augment whatever we do have. Like yesterday, Deva Madhava gave a presentation about Lord Ram and about Dharma and about how government should work. And he kind of said, he had this funny picture of, in the movie Castaway, the main character he had to make himself a raft. And it's like really, really ratchety, and he's on the water, and there's a small little tent there, and he's like overgrown beard. And then on there he put the caption, like, Gora Bhaktas is the guy, like, and then the ratchety raft was the Varnashram Dharma. So the meaning is that in Kali Yuga, we don't have Brahmins that can kill with a mantra. We don't have kings who can literally make sure everyone's protected, where if Kali comes, then there's nowhere for him to find, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling, and meat eating. And so, but we do have some principles, and there are some things that can make at least our idea of what Prabhupada's presenting us, what we can present to people, and how we can uplift society, can make it better. And so, I wanted to first highlight, Prabhupada's talking about in the purport that one of the things that the king or kshatriyas should do, and there is still, in today's society, it's still somewhat, that's true. Like police are allowed to have a gun. They're allowed to use deadly force if necessary. Of course, with their low intelligence and the general increase of so many unwanted elements in society, that sometimes is, you get, many mistakes are made and innocent people get hurt. But more people will get hurt if there was actually no protection. And that was, there was a whole year or two ago, defund the police. And then, but if you look at all the places that defunded the police, like New York City was one of them, actually the crime rate went up because they defunded the police. Like the police aren't the reason why the criminals, some criminals may get hurt and some innocent people may get hurt. But if the police if they stop doing their duty and the criminals are allowed to do what they want, the criminals are just going to hurt more people. And so more innocent people will get hurt. So in one purport I found, talking about Prithu Maharaj, so Prabhupada is explaining this kind of necessity of the ability to chastise and punish, danda, it's called in Manusmriti. A huge arrangement exists, that would happen during the time of Prithu Maharaj. So this is in the context of Mother Bhumi in the form of a cow. She's complaining that these criminals and the kings, they're not actually punishing the thieves. They're not actually doing their duty. So I don't want to maintain them. And so she's complaining to Prithu Maharaj. And so here's Prabhupada explaining in the purport. That which happened during the time of Prithu Maharaj and his father King Vena is also happening at this present moment. A huge arrangement exists for the production of large-scale industrial and agricultural products, but all these products are meant for sense gratification. Therefore, despite such a productive capacity, there is scarcity because the world's population is full of thieves. The word chori bhute indicates that the population has turned to thievery. So, as we understand also from Isa Upanishad and our other Vedic understandings, the ones in that are to go outside today, the other ones are going to go for Saturday. And you can take some, no problem. Charity starts at home. According to Vedic understanding, men are transformed into thieves when? Who is a thief? That's my question to you all. Who is a thief? That's what he's quoting Bhagavad Gita. There it is. If you enjoy something without offering it, without understanding who it actually belongs, then you're a thief. Like Prabhupada had a big industrialist. Oh, what do? Oh, I make glass. Okay, you make glass, and that's how you make your money, and you're so rich. So why don't you give all your money, or at least half of it? Why don't you give it to us, or give it to Krishna's, program? And he's like, he's like, so, then Prabhupada brought him to the point. Like you don't want to give money, but you realize you're actually a thief. You may be doing all the production, but where did the sand come from? You didn't make the sand. You just grabbed it. It was already there. You stole it. It was the Lord's property. So understanding that, you're just making this for your sense gratification. You should give something. So he called them out. So when people plan economic development for sense gratification, then they're automatically thieves. Like Bhakta Phil was saying, if you eat food grains without offering, or anything, if you use anything without offering it or understanding its connection to the Supreme Lord, then you're outside of Dharma. Another definition of Dharma is its intrinsic value. Like the Dharma of water is wetness. Sometimes the water can be frozen, sometimes the water can be vapor, but in its natural state, it's liquid and wetness. Or fire, the Dharma of fire is and heat and light. So similarly, if we are following the proper Bhagavat Dharma, we have like this highest God Dharma because we're part and parcel of God, and we understand ourselves to be subordinate to and serviential to and in a relationship with love to the Supreme Lord, then we're not thieves. Then the society can actually function properly. So here Prabhupada says, according to spiritual communism, all property on the surface of the globe belongs to Krishna. The population has a right to use goods only after offering them to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the problem with communism is that they say the state owns everything, and we just share it amongst the citizens, but then whoever the state is, whoever the comrades that get to become the high political positions, they end up getting all the good stuff. But with spiritual communism, you have Krishna in the center, then everyone recognizes that Krishna is the one that gets things, and then it can be distributed in a more honorable, practical way after recognizing that. This is the process of accepting prasad. Unless one eats prasad, he is certainly a thief. It is the duty of kings and governors to punish such thieves and maintain the world nicely. If this is not done, grains will no longer be produced and people will simply starve. Indeed, not only people will be obliged to eat less, they will kill one another and eat the other flesh. They'll become cannibals. They're already killing animals for flesh, so when there's no grains, vegetables, or fruits, they'll kill their own sons and their fathers, and they'll eat their flesh for sustenance. So this is kind of morbid, but this Bhagavatam is telling us the Tri Kalgyan, the sages that can see past, present, and future, they see this future in Kali Yuga, and it's morbid, it's grim, it's dark. But that's what comes when you don't follow the proper dharma. That you can't maintain the land doesn't want to maintain you. So we hear about this morbid, disgusting future that is going to come for anyone that doesn't get saved by Lord Chaitanya's movement. It's already going on. People are already killing their grandfathers in certain cultures and eating them and having a big feast, and it's just going to get worse and worse. If you read the 12th canto, you can see how worse it gets. When you see that everyone is only living to age 50, then that's like the maximum age. 25 is a ripe old man. Then you understand that Kali Yuga is in full-blown effect. It's coming. So we want to hear now, after hearing about this bad kings, because we know there's so many bad rulers, and practically speaking, no dharmic rulers on the planet at this time. Let's hear about, from the Brihad Bhāgavatamrita, something that I doubt many have heard about a king. The way that we heard about this king is in the Brihad Bhāgavatamrita. The first part is that Parikshit Maharaj is telling his mother, and basically it's like the seventh day. He just heard Shukadev Goswami, the Bhagavatam. And it's the seventh day, and his mother wants to hear something from him. So she goes to him, and he decides to speak the Brihad Bhāgavatamrita, which was previously spoken. And the Brihad Bhāgavatamrita is considered kind of like a commentary on the Bhagavatam. It was spoken to Jaimini Rishi, and has many people hearing it. So somehow Parikshit Maharaj, he was telling this to his mother, and the first section is Narada Muni searching for who is the best devotee. And so he first sees this Brahmana in this very wonderful area, and the Brahmana is like the head of all the other Brahmanas, and he's performing this ecstatic festival, and everyone's in ecstasy, and there's so much prasadam, and the deity is very wonderfully worshipped, and you could tell the Brahmana is very pure, and he's doing everything in a perfect way. And then out of his humility, when Narada approaches him and says, "Oh, you're the best devotee, look how wonderful you're doing all this," he says, "I'm the best devotee." No. And this is like a theme that goes on through the entire first section. Narada approaches so many different people, one after another, after they recommend. And they say, "No, how am I the best devotee?" And they recommend the next one, and they give the different reasoning. So this Brahmin says, "No, there's a king. I only have one temple. This king has his whole entire kingdom full of temples, and they're all beautiful. And the main deity, when you take darshan of the deity, you actually don't think it's a deity made of stone. You think it's Krishna himself just standing there. You can't even tell the difference. That's how wonderful he's been being worshipped. And there's such a wonderful place." So Narada Muni, then with that, he's like, "Okay, I'll go see the king," and because he's looking for who's the best devotee. And so here are some of the descriptions of this king as we get to this section in the Brihad Bhāgavatamrita. So listen up, Taj Trinu, just here. Many accomplished saints migrated to his kingdom, attracted by its spiritual features. Other people also came, including ordinary visitors, renounced pilgrims traveling to purify themselves, and distressed persons in search of food and shelter. All of them took advantage of the sacred, delicious Krishna prasadam, freely available throughout the kingdom. So that's nice. Imagine if the president said, okay, now instead of here, we'll make, we'll get some Brahmins, they'll organize thousands of people, and we're going to cook 1 million cookies, and every day everyone in New York gets cookies and khichdi and whatever prasad they need for free. Cookies for peace. It's sad that we can only make 400 and we just have one Jagadatri and about 10 of us packing them. We should have 10,000 Jagadatris baking and 1 million people packing and another billion people distributing. Make 1 billion cookies per day. In that kingdom, a joyous, ever-fresh festival is always being celebrated. At each moment, there are new offerings and performance of worship. The worship in the main temple of the capital never became stale and ritualistic. New items of worship were constantly introduced, and more important, the devotees' interest in pleasing the Lord was ever fresh. Thus, the displays of worship pleased both the deities and the public. So because of the natural enthusiasm, they're always including more and more festivals, more and more things. Like sometimes you can become rote, and it's just and you don't even think of the meaning of anything where it's samsara, dava, nalaya, loka, everyone just sleeping during Mangalarti. But this one is not like that. The king respectfully feeds all the residents of his country and the many foreign visitors with remnants of Lord Vishnu's worship. Commentary. To accommodate all the residents and travelers, the king maintained many Vishnu temples throughout the country, but the main temple in the capital was especially famous for its worship and prasad. And you'll notice this, any big temple is famous for its prasad. Like you go to South India, they're famous for these big ladus. Or Kirchur Gopinath, famous for its sweet rice. Or you go, to Mayapur, it's famous for its mishti doi. At least to me, it's, yeah. And you go to Govardhan, and there's the sweet shop there. And Mayapur's pizza. Mayapur has a lot of good prasad, actually. MVT is pretty good, but it wasn't freely distributed. But maybe when we get better arrangements, we can freely distribute first class prasadam. I guess we give khichdi right now to the guests. That's where we're at. That's our raft in the ocean. And where in the previous times they had a gigantic Titanic that was unsinkable. And now we just have a makeshift raft of logs tied together. The king has given his kingdom away to the demigods and brahmanas, dividing it amongst them. His kingdom is completely free from sorrow, social disruption, and fear. Commentary. The king granted to the presiding deities of local temples and to the brahmanas of each region official title to various parts of the country. He considered himself merely the caretaker of the kingdom under authority from its legal owners. So this is real. This is a real king, where he understands he's completely under the jurisdiction of the brahmanas, under the jurisdiction of God, and he's just a steward. He's just taking care of it. So similarly, all of us, with whatever resources that we have, if we're a big manager, or if we just have whatever's in our room and in our pockets, we should understand that we're just stewards of those things. Those aren't ours. They actually belong to God, and so they should be. Whatever to be done with them should be done in accordance with the desire of the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas, because they understand what is to actually be done with them. So similarly, like this king, he understands it's just the property of the Brahmins. So he literally gave them, okay, you're like the superintendent of this area, and I'm just your servant. And actually, it's sweet how the kings and Brahmanas used to relate in the perfect society. Like you would give the entire kingdom to the Brahmanas. They say, no, just take it back. We don't want it. Because the Brahmanas they don't need the opulence. They don't need the control. They don't want that. They just live simply. So they're happy to give it back. Even if they could take it, they don't want it. In that kingdom, now here's an amazing one. The earth yields crops without being tilled. They don't have to do any farming. The rain falls just enough for people's comfort. And whatever fruits, vegetables, and clothing one desires are easily to be had. So it says in the Bible that when Adam got punished by God for rebellion, and he cursed him outside of the Garden of Eden, he would have to till the land by the sweat of his face. That's what it says in the Bible. Yeah. And so, but previously they were enjoying the fruits of Eden without having to do anything. They could just do whatever they want. And the same ideal condition was prevailing thousands of years ago, especially in this South Indian kingdom. And the rain would fall, but it would never fall during the day. If rain falls during the day, it's actually inauspicious because you can't do anything. If you're traveling, you're going to get all wet. If you're, like we had to cancel our festival last week because it was raining. And this week, the rain is like scheduled to be in the morning, and we're hoping it stays that way. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult to have a festival. And so, but if everyone's doing their duty, then the demigods also do their duty. The demigods can control the weather. You know, maybe the scientists think they can control the weather by various different means. But actually, if the demigods, when push comes to shove, the demigods have the real power over that. The citizens were all happily followed the king as if they were his children. They perform their own social duties and are devoted to Lord Krishna. Like children who love and respect their parents, the citizens not only obeyed the king's direction, but also wanted to follow the example of his good character. So now we hear about the good character of the king. The king is so amazing. The king is always prideless. Worshipping Lord Achyuta with services a menial assistant would perform, he pleases all the people and is dear to the Lord. Commentary. So vast and rich a domain and such a reputation for religious accomplishments would make an ordinary king proud. But this Maharaj was a pure Vaishnav. He was happy to serve the Supreme Lord in the most humble way, washing and decorating the floors of his temples, keeping the temple lamps filled with oil, and etc. As the term Achyuta Priya indicates, he did not do this to make a show of humility, but purely out of devotional enthusiasm. So sometimes we can perform devotional activities, and when everyone's watching us, you perform them much better. Like I even remember one time this camera crew was like filming all the people at the ashram, and like they wanted to film me during japa. So it's like that japa period, like I didn't sleep at all, and I was completely like, you know, like focused more. But it wasn't, if that camera wasn't there, I might have like stopped early and like took rest or like chanted more lackadaisically or something like that. So this king, he's not just going to the temple and making sure all like the news cameras are there and he's like washing the floor. So like, you know, the headline, king is very humble. You know, he didn't care about that. He was actually humble. You know, you can find what you really are will come out in what you do when no one's watching. So we can understand where our devotion is, where our austerity is, where whatever is, with no pride, when we're actually, when whatever we do when we're by ourselves. Like if you were just to go off into the forest for a week or a month, what would you end up doing? That can show where your consciousness is. And here's another wonderful quality of the king. He always tries to satisfy the Lord. He himself performs sankirtan before the Lord's deities, chanting the Lord's names composed in various attractive arrangements. He dances, sings, and plays instruments. His sons, wives, brothers, grandsons, priests, servants, ministers, and other subordinates, he has them also take part. And the commentary says he didn't force his relatives and assistants to take part, but they're all first-class Vaishnavas. And like I was saying previously, the citizens wanted to follow the example of his good character, so they naturally all wanted to take a part. So this is a wonderful example of a king that's actually maintaining their society. Like how wonderful would it be to live in such a society? Imagine if the temples were maintained by the government. Like that, you know, that would be so profound. In India, they're kind of doing that, but it's wishy-washy. And we have about 20 minutes. I don't know if I can get through what I wanted to say. So I guess we'll take a pause here, and everyone can make a reflection, and we can remember some things that were said, and have a question, and we can grab the microphone so they could do that. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Since one, Krishna sees everything, shouldn't we be having the consciousness that Krishna is like the camera crew that you were talking about?
Yeah, but we don't care about you have weakness of heart. When you have anartas, you like know Krishna's watching, but you're like, all right, Krishna, you see this, but they don't see it.
But, well, what do you mean we don't care?
It's like you care more about your pride with other people. This is just like the nature of people. I mean, even if they hear, all these different things are witnesses. Krishna, the 10 directions, the wind, the sun, the moon, so on and so forth. They all witness all my activities. Even if a thief knows that, they still may do something like that due to anarthas and lower intelligence. The point is, if someone has the levels of anarthas, when they're alone, they're going to do something different than when they're around other people. When they know someone else is going to be there, then they may change their activity. And yeah, that's certainly, the more you meditate, actually, if you remember that Krishna is in your heart, then it'll stop you from doing bad things. But that's like the whole goal of all our practices, is try to keep that increasing. So if that's not working, then if someone's alone, where they're in a group of people, they may act a certain way to have the people verify them and glorify them, and or at least see that they're doing something. I mean, that's also the reason why Prabhupada had us come together as an association. So the people with anarthas could associate with the people with less anarthas, and therefore slowly burn them away. Because otherwise, if they just went by themselves, nagati kutopi, you don't know what's going to happen. That's why it's safer to be together with everyone, because then you have that constant pressure from everyone else. That's also why it's difficult to live in the ashram, because you don't have your free space. You have the constant pressure from other people. So it's like, as someone becomes more realized and they have more consciousness of Krishna, then those anarthas will go away. But it's good in the beginning stage to have that kind of external pressure.
And since Krishna is the supreme ruler, he dispatches individuals to be in the government, isn't Krishna taking care of everything anyway?
Well,
it's kind of wishy-washy that the government's taking care of the temples, but technically Krishna is taking care of all his devotees and even the indirect devotees.
Yeah, Krishna is maintaining everyone. He's definitely the maintainer, but there's different levels of maintenance according to the different peoples in society. Like, one example is, like, Krishna's made economic arrangements for everyone. But if all you want to do is eat junk food and have sex all day, then your economic arrangement is to be a pig. So that's not very nice. Like, you can do, like, people can be maintained like that. So similarly in Kali Yuga, those who want to become the different high positions, they're mostly demons who just have some good karma and had some desire. So Krishna gave them Kali Yuga to rule over. Whereas in other ages, there would be no way that they would ever even come close to having power. Or if they did, they would be held so accountable by so many different things that they wouldn't be able to actually, express their sinful desires. So it's kind of like in the constituents, they've also maintained so many sinful desires that it's kind of like everyone's getting their just rewards. Everyone's getting what they deserve in Kali Yuga. And so Krishna is kind of maintaining that. And he's also maintaining that all the pious people, they're not born during Kali Yuga. They're in heaven, they're somewhere else. They only are in the other yugas where it's much nicer. So he's maintaining it, but he's maintaining it in a certain kind of flow.
So doesn't this show how merciful Krishna is, that there's even a whole time for people?
Yeah, exactly. It's Krishna's. He has a relationship with each and every soul. I mean, even more merciful is that he wants them to get out of there. So obviously we follow Lord Chaitanya. Krishna came during Kali Yuga to give the actual process, very easy, wonderful process for anyone, even someone that's like a murderess, committed every sin in the book, like Jagai and Madai. They set the precedent that even if you're that low, as long as you're not offending the Vaishnavas, that you can still get prema. You can get out of this disgusting Kali Yuga and go to a place that's even more wonderful than the kingdom that we're hearing from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
Hare Krishna. I wanted to get your opinion on this. I was having a nice discussion with a devotee recently, and we were talking about, specifically the conversation was about Mirdanga, and this devotee had a very austere conception about kirtan in general, kind of saying, well, in Prabhupada's time, people didn't really learn Mirdanga beats, like they just played the most basic thing, and that was okay. And so we shouldn't waste our time trying to become very competent at the instrument. because, the basic level of competency is enough. And it was just this sort of idea like, we don't have to invest so much time in the creative element and in creating new things, because just, follow the tradition, and then that's enough. But you were just reading that section about how the Brahmana, in his kingdom, they were constantly inventing new and innovative ways to please
They
the
had
Lord.
attractive arrangements.
Attractive arrangements.
If you make arrangements, it means you have to really think about it, not just like, I'm just going to go and do it.
And
Yeah,
actually
okay.
that process
So,
created-
I'll let you finish something, but let me say a little bit about what you already said. So, in Prabhupada's time, it was time, place, and circumstance, kala, desha, patra, should always be in consideration. Prabhupada was trying to take a sapling of bhakti from the luscious soil of Vrindavan and Mayapur. He was trying to plant it in the cold soil of New York. And then, after it started growing due to his miraculous gardening, he was trying to distribute the fruits as quickly as possible and put seeds all around his world as quickly as possible. And it necessitated a kind of passionate force that was emanating from him to all his disciples to accomplish that. But what he said near the end, he said, "Now I want you to maintain it. Now I want you to boil the milk." And the idea is, if you, we see that they were expanding greatly in that time, but also many people were leaving. 500 may join in a week, and 480 may have left that week. Something like that. And so, in his time, Naranjana Maharaj was telling us, ki rikita, de da. Okay, that's the beat. Go in Harinam all day, and he would play that for 3 hours. He didn't even know. He just was shown for 5 minutes, and then he's the kirtan party leader. And so that, when desperate times call for desperate measures, and in times of war, even the untrained farm boy can become a lieutenant. But in times of peace, now that we have to maintain, we want to make something dharmic, we want to make something to maintain over a long period of time. All of these different things can be expanded according to a person's qualities. There's the Shudras, the Vaishyas, the Brahmanas, and the Kshatriyas, and they all have different arts which can be unlimitedly expanded. And then now in Kali Yuga, we're going to have our ratchety raft. We're not going to have the perfect, we're not going to have Brahmins that are going to be chanting the mantras to kill the impious king. We're not going to have Brahmins who can chant a mantra to bring back a cow from the sacrifice. That's why in Kali Yuga there's no sacrifices, because they can't bring the animal back. Otherwise the animal comes back as in a new body, and you see it, and it's proof of the Brahmin's potency. But there's no one smart enough to understand that now. Or the Kshatriyas, there's no Kshatriyas that can single-handedly just kill everyone. They just can't be stopped. Like Parikshit Maharaj, he was an unstoppable force. No one could deal with him. Arjuna, unstoppable. All these Kshatriyas, they could single-handedly fight with millions of people. You don't have that. They don't have the divine Shakti weapons that they under some mantra, and they fire one arrow and it becomes like a whole mountain, or it becomes a hurricane, or it becomes a firestorm. They don't have that these days. And so, but still the Brahmanas, we can study the shlokas, and maybe now there's more people that have more time to study than back then. Back then it's just, okay, we got to get out and preach. But now let's make ourselves better. And there is that urgency to preach still. And that is also and if you're learning mridanga in the Bengali culture, the actual mridanga gurus, the mridanga players they learn since 5 years old. They learn for so long, and they learn in such a way that's very it would seem so austere and weird for us. So in us, it's almost like if you just show someone a mantra, one little karana, and then they go out and play, that's almost the same as in Prabhupada's time. It's still the urgency, okay, let's make it so we can go out and preach. And to say that you shouldn't practice at all, Prabhupada never said that. He said yes, you should practice and become expert at whatever service you're doing. In cooking, there's unlimited, varieties that we can learn how to cook and learn how to improve our cooking. Just because they made, certain kind of recipes doesn't mean we have to stick with those recipes for all of time. We can find more recipes. We can look through the Shastras and see what Krishna likes and deepen it. Like Prabhupada gave us principles which can be deepened. That if we can get back to the enthusiasm of the old days, that's also good. I mean, there's plenty of value in the simple beats that they played, but there's also value in studying the different arts. Especially speaking of if they're not spending their whole life in the temple. I mean, these arts are like what makes society relishable. Actually, before the videos and cinemas came out, there was troops of super expert musicians and dramatists. They would put on the most amazing shows just about Bhagavan and different things. Like, it would be like Bhagavat dramas. And, even we just saw the little kids like dancing with like the poorly edited audio and like their costumes falling apart. But it was still like, it touches your heart and you're like, okay. So we spent our night doing that rather than going to Broadway, rather than going to the bar, rather than doing all the other sinful activities that are available to do in New York on a given night. We could spend doing that. So for the whole society to expect them to stay in the temple and not drink, not smoke, not have sex, not go eat meat, not try to do whatever to try to like titillate their senses. Like, you need people that can actually captivate them and direct it towards Krishna. If you don't have that, then the society can't be good. So maybe the society will never be good in Kali Yuga, but maybe it will. Prabhupada said to Narayan, I think Gopal, you may have been mentioning that, if we don't preach, automatically maybe some will become Krishna conscious. But if we preach, Prabhupada said, why not 100%? So that's some thoughts I had on that.
I mean, there was one quick
Gopal.
second part. Yeah,
Second part.
Yeah, briefly. So then the other part of the conversation was so then, having like innovative new ways to make it attractive, like kirtan, making kirtan have nice melodies and making it like, musically good and making nice artwork and having nice temples and all of these things. And sort of the question of, this devotee replied, well, when you get to the Raganuga platform, that's different. When you're doing it out of natural inspiration for Krishna, but until that level, it's not.
Okay, so there's two things. One thing is you're saying like making the attractive arrangements. One thing, there's only 7 notes, so there's not like new notes. So making like you can sing the same tune, but if you're singing it more in tune, it'll sound much better. So if you don't practice, it's not going to sound in tune. You could play the same beat, but if you're not playing the same beat with the exact timing, it's not going to sound as good. But you see like expert drummers, when they may be saying the same exact thing that you were trying to play, but it sounds so much better when they play it because it's exact. So it's similarly like, the person who's made halava for 50 years is going to make a really good halava compared to like the new bhakta's first attempt. Something like that. And so, yeah, the basics are principles that can go in deep, and from that, naturally, then there's certain things that'll arise that they're not really variations, but they're like, or extra things. They just make it more wonderful.
So we can offer creatively to Krishna without it being for our own sense gratification, without necessarily being on the highest platform. Spontaneous attraction. It can still be there, some attraction. We can try to offer something creative.
Yeah, Prabhupada would always say, like, you just operate under the guidance of the spiritual master, because, like, for example, like a painter, like, they don't really know what to paint. The Shamarani asked, should I go, Yadarani, she said, should I go to paint school or art school? It's like, I want to learn how to paint like Michelangelo. Prabhupada's like, no, you just keep painting and praying to Krishna and doing that, because he needed artwork to get done for his thing. And now you look at her, and her artwork is like, if you look at the first painting in 26 Avenue, and you look at the painting she's done, since then, and it's amazing the transformation, how much feeling she's got in it.
So the principle being, is it being done for the pleasure of Krishna? So, and it's not that, there's the two extremes. You shouldn't do anything creative at all.
Yeah, that'll kill your enthusiasm.
And then there's like the extreme where you just get
do whatever you want. Do whatever you want.
It's like do whatever you. It's like, and then it gets like, what are we doing again? So
you come up with new mantras, in the kirtan.
They go on doing the kirtan, but yet Hare Krishna hasn't been sung in the whole hour of the kirtan's been going on. So there's the principle of pleasing Krishna and also adhering Natabara-Gauranga, who was saying to the spiritual master, and then always checking in, is this pleasing to you? Is this pleasing? Because and then we have authorities also that we can bring our creativity to. So that's the point of parampara, and having guides and mentors who will check us if something is a little too off, or so there's a realm that we can kind of be creative in, and if something's going too off, then we can also be open to correction. But I think there should be a healthy balance of allowing some room for creativity, but at the same time understanding that we don't want to get too far off track.
Yeah, there are boundaries.
And then ultimately, the central point being, we're doing this for Krishna's pleasure. That's the idea.
Yeah, and if we want to go to class till 10, I have like a whole another hour of material about different kings and how they make a situation where like there's certain people like democracy, probably call it demon crazy. People like democracy because they think it brings certain outcomes in the society. But if I would had another hour, I could show how if Vedic culture, if Dharmic culture were to abound, then these different qualities that people are looking for in a society would become much stronger than in current democracies and even the best like so-called democracies or ideal democracies. Yeah, maybe. I don't like talking when I'm eating, and then after I'm done eating, I'm gonna go practice mridanga. So, Nunam trakramanam deva satam smraksharnayate vidaya chasatam yastvam hare shaktir hipalini. Om Tat Sat. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.